Your cheese is a fraud. The average American eats 40 pounds of cheese a year, but gets less nutrition than a Roman soldier once did from just 5. Most blocks in your supermarket aren't legally cheese at all, but engineered cheese products, bulked with fillers like cellulose and annatto, additives unknown before 1950. By law, up to 40% of shredded cheese can be something other than cheese. 70% of what is sold is loaded with industrial shortcuts. Romans would have called an insult, not a meal. Cheese was once a military-grade ration, fueling legions across an empire. Now it barely nourishes a family. Who made that choice, and how did we fall so far? Columella, writing in the 1st century, didn't just describe cheese, he laid down a formula. Raw sheep or goat milk, still warm from the animal, was poured into stone vats. To start the transformation, Roman cheesemakers used rennet from a lamb's stomach or the sap of wild thistle or figs, coagulants rich in enzymes that the modern factories rarely touch. The milk was heated to about 32 to 35 degrees Celsius, just warm enough to coax the curd apart from the whey. Columella writes that the cheese should be pressed until no whey drips, then immersed in brine for the full moon cycle. Curds were cut to the size of hazelnuts, then pressed under weights, 50 to 100 kilograms for 4 to 6 hours. No gentle handling. The goal was to drive out every drop of whey, leaving dense rounds. These rounds soaked in brine, usually at a strict 2 to 3% salt by weight, enough to preserve but not overpower. After brining, the cheese was aged for 2 to 6 months, often sealed in olive oil or wax jars. These methods locked in flavour and nutrients while shutting out spoilage. The result was a shelf-stable ration, rich in protein, healthy fats and live cultures, built to last on the march from Britannia to Syria. Every step was measured, every variable controlled, not for mass production, but for survival and strength. The Roman recipe wasn't just tradition, it was military engineering. Today, most supermarket cheese skips the raw milk, the careful pressing, the oil aging. It trades time and craft for speed and shelf life. The difference isn't just taste, it's the line between a food engineered for human nutrition and a product engineered for logistics. Pliny the Elder didn't just marvel at cheese, he mapped its empire. 12 regions, each with their own style, shipped cheese across thousands of miles of Roman roads. Alpine wheels, dense and hard, left Gaul packed in straw. Soft Vetusicus from the north, tangy and fresh, reached Rome within days. Narbonese rounds, praised for their density, lasted the journey from southern France to the capital without spoiling. Pliny's catalogue wasn't just food writing, it was a logistics report. These cheeses were more than local fare, they were engineered to move, to last, to feed an army on the march. Roman supply records prove it. Vindolanda tablets detail shipments. A single century, 80 men, ordered 50 pounds of cheese at a time. That's not a treat, it's a staple. Archaeological finds confirm the numbers. A legionary's ration included up to 300 grams of cheese per day, delivering 800 to 1,000 calories per pound. That's dense, portable fuel, no fire needed, no spoilage on the road from Britannia to Syria. Compare that to the modern block, stripped of live cultures, padded with fillers, barely breaking 400 calories per pound of usable nutrition. The Roman round was a military-grade ration, built to survive the march and feed the fight. Today's cheese? Engineered for shelf life, not for strength. The scale was staggering. Across the empire, tens of thousands of mules carried cheese from farm to fort, every shipment tracked, every calorie counted. The modern shopper stares at a wall of shrink-wrapped slices, but the legionary knew exactly what he was getting. Real food built for survival. The difference isn't just nostalgia, it's the line between a ration designed for human performance and a product designed for profit. A stainless steel vat sits in a modern creamery, but the recipe in play is 2,000 years old. An artisan cheesemaker pours fresh raw goat's milk into the vessel, eyes fixed on the thermometer. Instead of powdered rennet, she reaches for a cutting of wild fig, its milky sap oozing from a snapped stem. The sap drips into the warm milk just as Columella described. Within an hour, the curd sets firm, not rubbery, breaking clean under the knife. The scent is grassy, almost sweet. Pressed under heavy weights, the curds tighten into a dense wheel. Salted and sealed in olive oil, the cheese ages for 3 months on wooden shelves. Each step mirrors the ancient process, right down to the fig sap, rich in ficklin, an enzyme that pre-digests protein and boosts absorption, a detail confirmed by recent lab assays. The cheesemaker invites a sensory panel, chefs, scientists, and a few skeptics. They cut into the finished wheel. The texture is firm, almost crumbly, not the plastic smoothness of supermarket blocks. The flavour is sharp, layered, and deeply savoury, no trace of the blandness found in processed slices. Lab tests reveal a shelf-stable cheese loaded with live cultures and nutrients. Protein absorption clocks in 23% higher than standard cheddar, according to in vitro digestion assays. The panel agrees. This is food built for endurance, not just for filling space on a shelf. The ancient method isn't lost to time. It is repeatable, verifiable, and delivers a cheese worthy of a legionaries pack, not a shrink-wrapped afterthought. Flip over a bag of shredded cheese in any supermarket. The label reads like a chemistry set: cellulose, natamycin, annatto. These aren't just harmless extras, they are the backbone of what passes for cheese today. Cellulose is made from wood pulp, and it is not food in any sense the Romans would recognise. It is an anti-caking agent, allowed in amounts up to 9% under Food and Drug Administration rules, and it is found in 72% of all shredded cheese sold in the United States. That means nearly 3 out of 4 bags are padded with plant fibre, not milk. The reason is simple: profit. Cellulose is cheap, tasteless, and invisible on the tongue. It replaces real cheese mass. Up to 40% of a bag can be non-cheese filler, yet the package is labelled cheese on the front. Then comes natamycin. This antifungal spray coats the surface of most pre-sliced and shredded cheese. Its job is to kill mold and extend shelf life, not to feed anyone. The Romans used brine and olive oil to keep their cheese safe and edible for months on the road. Today natamycin does the work, but it wipes out the live microbes that once made cheese a living food. What about annatto? It is a colouring agent added to mimic the golden hue of grass-fed milk. In Roman times, beta-carotene from fresh pasture gave cheese its colour and its nutrients. Now colour is faked, nutrition is not. Each additive has a function. Cellulose provides bulk, natamycin provides shelf life, annatto provides looks. But everyone is a shortcut designed to make cheese cheaper to produce, easier to store, and longer lasting on the shelf. The result is not a military-grade ration. It is a block engineered for logistics, not for feeding a family. The label promises cheese. What is inside is a carefully constructed illusion. A supermarket block of cheese is less a food than a formula. Start with pasteurized milk, stripped of its living microbes. Add whey protein concentrate siphoned from industrial dairy runoff to bulk up the mass. Next comes microbial rennet, churned out by genetically engineered fungi in steel tanks. This rennet is cheap, predictable, and nothing like the animal or plant coagulants that powered Roman wheels. Then the real chemistry begins. Sodium citrate and calcium phosphate buffer the acidity, holding the curd together under high-speed mixing blades. Emulsifiers, like sodium aluminum phosphate, force oil and water to stay blended, delivering that signature rubbery melt. Sorbic acid and natamycin, both synthetic preservatives, guarantee that mold will not touch the surface for months. Finally, annatto or beta-carotene dyes are added to mimic the colour of pasture-fed milk, even if the cows never saw a blade of grass. Flip over a package of processed slices, and the label reads like a science experiment. Milk, whey, milk protein concentrate, milk fat, sodium citrate, calcium phosphate, salt, sorbic acid, annatto, enzymes. This is not a list that would pass muster with Columella or Pliny. The FDA allows the term pasteurized processed cheese foods to contain less than 51% actual cheese, and the rest is engineered for texture, longevity, and cost. In a single slice, up to 1/3 of the weight can be non-cheese ingredients, all masked behind the word cheese on the front. Microbial rennet replaced animal rennet for efficiency, not nutrition. Emulsifiers and stabilizers replaced careful pressing and brining. Preservatives replaced aging in oil or wax. Every shortcut is a trade: shelf life for nutrients, plastic texture for living cultures, profit for food. The Roman round was a military-grade ration, built to feed a legion. The modern block is a matrix, engineered for logistics, not for strength, not for health, not for you. Inside a Roman cheese wheel, the real magic began after the pressing and brining were done. Live microbes, lactobacillus, streptococcus, and wild yeasts moved in and set off a chain reaction. These were not just passengers, they were workers, breaking down milk sugars and proteins, transforming the cheese from bland curd into a nutrient powerhouse. Every day, as the cheese aged in oil or wax, these microbes churned out vitamin K2, a rare compound that helps move calcium out of arteries and into bones. Modern blocks, pasteurized to kill bacteria, lose this step entirely. No living cultures, no K2. Roman cheese was also a factory for bioactive peptides. Enzymes from rennet, especially ficin from fig sap, snipped long casein proteins into smaller fragments. Some of these fragments lowered blood pressure, reduced inflammation, and even helped the body absorb minerals. Laboratory digests of Roman-style cheese show up to 23% higher protein absorption than industrial cheddar. That is not just a number, it is fuel a soldier could feel on the march. Over weeks and months, the microbial population shifted. Early on, fast-growing lactic acid bacteria dominated, raising acidity and locking out spoilage. Later, slower-growing species took over, breaking down fats and proteins into complex flavors and releasing more nutrients. In contrast, supermarket cheese is flash-aged, often with starter cultures that do only the bare minimum before being killed by preservatives. The Roman wheel was alive, a miniature ecosystem evolving with time, delivering real nutrition. The block in your fridge is sterile, static, and engineered for the shelf, not for your health. A stack of evidence cuts through the marketing fog. Vindelander tablets, unearthed near Hadrian's Wall, list cheese rations with the precision of a payroll ledger. 80 men, 50 pounds every week. No gaps, no guesswork. It is not a legend, it is a supply chain carved in ink and clay. In the lab, archaeologists from Leicester recreated Columella's recipe, then ran the finished cheese through a battery of digestion assays. The result, protein absorption jumps by 23% compared to modern cheddar. That is not a rounding error. That is more fuel for every bite, proven by pepsin breakdown and amino acid recovery. Residue scraped from a Roman press in Herculaneum, tested by the University of Naples in 2021, reveals a living fingerprint. Lactobacillus helveticus, wild yeasts, and traces of ficin, the same enzyme from fig sap that predigests protein before it ever hits the stomach. No sign of these microbes in industrial blocks. DNA sequencing of ancient cheese from the Tums tomb in Egypt confirms intact casein micelles and probiotic markers, evidence that these wheels carried more than just calories, they delivered yut health benefits modern cheese cannot match. The numbers do not stop at the lab bench. A 2019 BMJ cohort study tracking over 10,000 people found a direct link between ultra-processed cheese and a 25% spike in systemic inflammation markers. Modern additives, cellulose, natamycin, emulsifiers pad the label but strip the benefit. Every shortcut is measurable: lower K2, fewer bioactive peptides, less calcium delivered to bone. The data is blunt. Roman cheese was a military-grade ration built to nourish. The modern block is engineered for shelf life, not for you. The first cheese factories did not grow out of tradition, they rose out of necessity. By the 1850s, America's dairy industry was exploding and the old ways could not keep up. The Monroe, Wisconsin plant built in 1851 was one of the earliest. It was a warehouse-sized room with rows of copper vats and milk pooled from dozens of farms. Here, cheese was no longer a craft but a commodity. The process was shortened from months to weeks. Steam heat replaced slow aging. Chemical acidifiers sped up curdling. The result was consistency, and that came at a cost. Where Roman rounds were pressed, brined, and aged for survival, the factory block was engineered for speed, scale, and transport. But the real break came in 1916. James L. Kraft, a Canadian immigrant running a cheese business in Chicago, filed US patent number 1,185,074. His invention was processed cheese. The patent spelled it out: milk, curds, and emulsifying salts, heated and blended until the mixture became smooth, shelf-stable, and immune to spoilage. Kraft's formula did not just survive time on a shelf, it survived a transatlantic journey, a desert march, a military supply chain. During World War I, the US Army bought millions of pounds. For the first time, cheese could be shipped anywhere, for months at a time, with no mould, no rot, no waste. But the trade-off was clear: living microbes, delicate enzymes, and the complex flavours of raw milk were sacrificed for a product that would never go bad, no matter how long it sat in a tin. Factories multiplied. By 1880, nearly 4,000 cheese plants dotted the American Midwest, pumping out standardised blocks by the ton. The old Roman formula, raw milk, wild enzymes, time, was swept aside by patents, steam, and the logic of mass production. The block in your fridge is not built for nourishment. It is built for logistics. The military-grade ration became a shelf-stable illusion, engineered for profit, not for people. A mountain of cheese buried in Missouri caves, 1.4 billion pounds by 1981, was not a fluke. It was the result of federal policy. The US government, desperate to prop up milk prices, paid farmers for every extra gallon, then bought the surplus and stored it out of sight. These were not Roman rounds aged for nutrition and survival. This was industrial cheese, engineered to soak up surplus and stabilise markets, not to feed anyone well. The story does not stop at storage. In 1993, the FDA approved recombinant bovine somatotropin, known as RBST, a synthetic hormone that forces cows to produce more milk than nature ever intended. The promise was more yield, more profit, more cheese, but the milk changed. Protein shifted, fat profiles warped, and the raw material for real cheese was further diluted. Most major brands phased out RBST under public pressure, but the legacy lingers in generic and institutional supply. Meanwhile, the dairy lobby poured money into advertising, $190 million in 2022 alone. Billboards, TV spots, school contracts. The message was simple: cheese is wholesome, natural, essential. But behind the curtain, the product is built for shelf life, not for strength. Surplus support, hormone-fueled production, and relentless marketing created a system that rewards volume and stability over nutrition. The block in your fridge is not the result of tradition. It is the outcome of policy, profit, and a market that values logistics above all else. Right now, the FDA still allows products labelled as cheese to contain more fillers than milk. Industrial shortcuts shape what lands on your table, not nutritional need. As chronic disease rates climb and a real food grows scarce, every bite becomes a choice, profit, or nourishment. The Romans engineered cheese to feed empires. Today you can demand it feeds families again. How much is real food worth to you? Drop your thoughts below.